Hello and welcome back to the Grab Bag, episode number 2. Today we're going to switch things up a little bit. We're going to talk about sports, and in particular, Conor McGregor. Now, Conor McGregor is somewhat of a polarizing figure. Most people either love him or hate him. But at this moment in time, I'd like to talk to the Irish people a little bit. There seems to be a bit of a theme here that some Irish people are not very fond of Conor. And for some of the reasons I can understand why. He's brash, that's for sure. He's not afraid to speak his mind. He's usually the loudest person in the room. And I get that. But you see, here in America, we have a lot of experience with people that come from nothing. You know, when you come from nothing and you're handed a bunch of money all at once, sometimes you're not equipped to know how to handle that. This doesn't necessarily make for bad people. You know, there's an old saying here in the United States, and I'm sure it's probably ubiquitous across the world, a fool and their money will soon part. I don't think Conor McGregor by any stretch is a fool. And I'm sure that he's surrounded himself with good people that have taught him a lot of things along the way. I know that his coach, John Kavanaugh, has been very instrumental in his life. He's got a good family. But, this guy was a plumber. And he pulled himself up by the bootstraps. And he got into that gym and he started working, or as Conor would say, wooking. But, he did this on his own. And because he's got money now, and because he's bought Gucci bags and clothing and, $200,000 watches and $100 bottles of, whiskey and things of that nature, just because he's got that doesn't mean that he's a bad person. I think we're a little too quick to point our finger at people with money. It's not like, he got this money through corruption, some sort of Middle East oil contract because of a corrupt politician, and I've read many comments on Twitter, a lot of tweets depicting Conor as some sort of bad person because I remember one in particular was said, you're out there in your Lamborghini while people in Ireland are, starving and homeless and things of that nature. Well, Conor has also invested a lot of money in Ireland. SBC Gym, for once, is a centrally located gym where people can come from all parts of Dublin, Ireland, and work out, set goals for themselves, and in turn it keeps them off the streets. It gives them direction in life, which is exactly what happened to him. I mean, like I said, he was a plumber. He absolutely hated that job, and he was able to get himself off of government funding and make a life for himself. So I think we're a little quick to point fingers at Conor for having money. He earned that money. And I don't think, people with money don't stay wealthy if they give it all away. And if he can turn around and do something good by investing that money, which he has done so far, I think that, we should cut him a little bit of a break. Believe me, I came from the gutters and I understand. And, I'm not wealthy by any stretch. I still live paycheck to paycheck like most people do. But I'll never feel envious of somebody because they have money. It's all about how you've come across that money. I think that bothers a lot of people. And what's the difference between, going to college for 4 years and investing that time in college, going out and achieving a job where you make an honest living, or investing that 4 years into a gym and becoming a mixed martial artist superstar. And you could argue that Conor McGregor is one of the biggest stars in the world right now, and it's all self-done. He's done all of this on his own. And granted, he's had the support of John Kavanaugh and a couple other people in the gym that have helped him along the way. But the fact of the matter is, he's the one that got up every day, hit the gym, hit the bags, and done everything that's required of a mixed martial artist to become successful. You can't take that away from the guy. And yeah, maybe he is a little brash, and maybe that's something that bothers you. And I also think that something else might come into play with the people in Ireland is the fact that I understand that football there, which we call soccer, is a bit of a hurdle for him to get over because he's a mixed martial artist. He's not even a boxer. So, I think you're a little rough on the guy, honestly. Give the guy a chance. He's only 28 years old. Let's not forget that either. With age comes experience, and with experience, you tend to learn a lot of lessons in life. So let's cut the guy a little slack, I say. Now let's switch topics here with Conor a little bit. He's coming up on possibly fighting Floyd Money Mayweather. When I first heard about this, I realized it was a payday for Conor, but I was also thinking to myself, Floyd Mayweather, is that really the one you want to bite off? However, looking back on Conor's career, I also know that there have been so many times where I've doubted this guy. I remember when he first came in, I thought to myself, who the hell is this guy? Who does he think he is? And it didn't take me long at all, or I don't think it took a lot of people long at all to realize this guy was special, that he had it, not just in his fights and his press conferences and everything else. And I remember watching the fight with Marcus Brimage, and I think that was his first fight in the UFC, and he pulled out that left-hand kiss of death, the kiss of death, and he laid that on Marcus Brimage, and Brimage buckled. And and then he goes off and he beats Max Holloway and Diego Sanchez. I'm sorry, Diego Brandiao and Dustin Poirier, and then Jose Aldo, 13-second knockout on a guy that hadn't lost in 10 years. That's special. The fight with Dustin Poirier, that was an annihilation. Poirier didn't stand a chance. And then, like I say, you got the Jose Aldo fight where, a 13-second knockout when Jose hadn't lost a fight in 10 years. Then you come to the very first Nate Diaz fight. A lot of people don't realize this, but the medicals came out afterward, and they always bring out the medicals. And Conor, a lot of people don't know this, but he had a staph infection a couple weeks out from that fight, which in turn put him on antibiotics. And if you've never been on heavy-duty antibiotics from a staph infection, I got to tell you, I know that it's a very, very grueling time. It takes a physical toll on you. It's something it's very difficult to measure because it depletes your system is what it does. And so when people say he gassed out this and that against Nate, first of all, Nate's a beast. Okay. Nate Diaz is a beast. And both of them took that fight, I think it was 2 weeks out, if memory serves me correct. And that was not a fight for either fighter. But to have been on antibiotics for 2 weeks going into that fight, that's something that you have to take into account when you start talking about how he gassed out, he got choked out, and things like that. Anybody would have gassed out on that. So then we come to the second fight, of course. And I'm going to say something. Everybody's always talking about how big Nate Diaz is, and compared to Conor, that. I'd say he probably had 10, maybe 12 pounds on Conor. And we have weight classes in UFC and in Bellator, any mixed martial arts program. There's weight, and boxing. There's weight classes for a reason. But, it wasn't like Nate was some big, gigantic monster over Conor, like Dana White seems to implicate. But it can be a little more difficult to bring somebody that's that much bigger than you down in mixed martial arts. So, as close as a fight as it was, I can't, and I'm referring to the second fight. I don't know how you give that fight to Nate. Conor clearly won 3 rounds. And when you look at the overall fight itself, Conor put him down 3 times. Nate never really put him down until the last 15 seconds of that fight. And you have to think to yourself, there's 15 seconds left in that fight. I'm not sure that Conor goes down if there's a minute left in that fight. I think Conor realized that he had the win and probably took his eye off the ball a little bit. And that allowed Nate to get him down in that last 15 seconds. But really, Conor was never in any trouble in that fight at all. So I don't know how you give that fight to Nate. I know a lot of people like to say that. And I love Nate. Don't get me wrong. I love Nick and Nate. They're warriors. They're zombies. You hit those guys, they just don't fall. But then that brings you to UFC 205, where he fights Eddie Alvarez. And, let's talk about what a big star Conor is. Just under 16,000, over 15,000 people at the press conference. This is a press conference. They packed the house on a presser. And, of course, Conor took that presser over. He's just so gifted with his mouth. And I know Jeremy Stevens definitely learned a very valuable lesson at that press conference. So now that brings us back to Money Mayweather here. The guy's 49-0. And, he's 40 years old, but he's still Floyd Money Mayweather. So the conventional wisdom is Conor's not a boxer, technically. Floyd Money Mayweather is the most gifted defensive boxer ever. That you can't take away from the guy. He doesn't exactly have knockout power. But he can box. He's one of the greatest ever. And for Conor to take this fight makes you step back and think, I don't know, man. I don't think you can pull this off, Conor. But we didn't think that he could pull off the second Nate Diaz fight. Nobody could have ever predicted that Conor would have knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. Most people didn't even have Conor winning that fight, let alone putting him to sleep in 13 seconds. And if you watch the tape, technically he was out in 9 seconds. It wasn't until Herb Dean stepped in there, and as Conor was hitting him with hammer fist, that it got to 13 seconds. So, that's. But one thing I think that, other than that kiss of death, I think that needs to be accounted for when it comes to Conor's ability to fight, to box, is the fact that Conor has this tremendous gift when it comes to defensive boxing. If you watch that Eddie Alvarez fight, and Eddie's swinging on him, Conor, he's missing Conor by a half inch sometimes. And Eddie's throwing overhands on him and just missing him. And Conor doesn't flinch. He's got a real gift for distance, for judging distance. And I think that that's something that a lot of people are overlooking. If Conor has that ability to judge that distance, that in depth, and he's that good at it, that's something I think that even Floyd might overlook. And if he overlooks that, if Floyd goes into this fight thinking this is an easy payday, and it's a very easy thing for him to do, being 49-0, being Floyd Money Mayweather, I think that this has the possibility, and in no way am I predicting Conor's going to win this fight. But I will say, if it ends in the first 3 or 4 rounds, it's a Conor win. Conor has shocked the world many, many times. I am not one of these people that are completely writing him off in this fight. Not for all of the times that he went into a fight and I thought to myself, he's got no shot. The Dennis Seaver fight was even more of an eye-opener for me than the Marcus Brimage fight because it was a tougher fight for him. It was a big dude he fought. Dennis Seaver was shorter, but that's a big dude. And he had a lot of MMA experience where Conor, he was very, very fresh, very green. So now the one part that's really going to strike against Conor here is that I'm guessing they're going to fight in the squared circle. They're not going to fight in an octagon. And most likely they're going to probably have 10-ounce gloves. That's going to hurt Conor in that kiss of death. It's going to make it a lot tougher to put Floyd down. If they can somehow squeeze in 8-ounce gloves on this fight, I think that poses a problem, a big problem for Floyd. Because don't get me wrong, I want to repeat myself again, Floyd is the best defensive boxer ever. There's no question about that. But when you've got a puncher's chance and you're Conor McGregor and you've got that left hand kiss of death, 8-ounce gloves, I don't think Floyd allows that. But if he does, if there's any bargaining chips that Conor can call in here and he can squeeze in those 8-ounce gloves, it could be lights out for Floyd in the 3rd or 4th round. It very well could be. Now, if this fight goes past 5 rounds, I don't see it. I don't see any way where Conor wins this fight. And again, I'm not predicting a Conor win at all. But I think he shows up a lot better than a lot of people are going to give him credit for. Max Kellerman and Steven Smith, these guys are pretty much writing Conor off, as being some sort of laughable event. I've seen Mike Tyson come out and say things. Sugar Ray Leonard, a lot of people have a lot to say, and rightfully so. It's their sport, and they want to defend it. And the last thing they want to do is to see somebody come in there from another sport. As similar as the two sports are, they are a lot different. Nobody wants to see them come in there and kind of make a buffoon of somebody, especially if it's Floyd Mayweather, 49-0. They can't have that, because you can rest assured that it would be the death of boxing if Conor beats Floyd. You can stick a fork in it. It's done. It's over. There's no more interest in boxing ever again. That I guarantee you. And when you couple all of the attributes that Conor has And, and if, like I said, if you can squeeze in those 8-ounce gloves and his judge of distance, which you understand that judge of distance, I've been around boxing gyms a lot in my life. I grew up on the same block as a guy that owned a boxing gym in his backyard, and this was a big time boxing gym. Bernard Benton fought out of this gym, and Bernard Benton, if you don't know, he beat Buster Douglas. That's the guy that beat Mike Tyson, and he beat him the next fight. So this gym was no joke. So I've been around it a lot, and judge of distance is a huge deal in boxing. It's not just side-to-side movement. If you know that punch ends up here, you don't need to worry about it. That's a big part of the battle. And then, Conor and Dee Devlin, they just had their baby, and but I think that now that that's behind him, he's had a lot of time to train. And by the way, Dee Devlin, wow. I'm sorry, Conor, she's hot. Any rate, he's got that behind him. I think that he's got a lot of. Owen Roddy is one of his training partners, his primary boxing training partner, and Owen Roddy's a very good boxer, and he's certainly a great trainer. You got to love Conor's loyalty too. Getting back to the Irish people, there's something to be said for that. He's been so loyal to John Kavanagh. Hey, let's be realistic here. Conor could easily go start a gym on his own, and it would make him millions. But that's just not the kind of person he is. And John Kavanagh has been very loyal to him. I remember hearing one time where Conor said that he would run out of the gym when payments were due, and John Kavanagh would just kind of let him slide by. And I'm sure they'll have a lot to do with the fact that John Kavanagh knew what he had in Conor McGregor. But it goes to show you how loyal that John Kavanagh was to him, and in turn, Conor's been to him, and how Conor's been loyal to Owen Roddy, Dylan Dennis. You can't put a price on loyalty, and I think that gives him a lot of good karma. So, but anyway, I digress. I just want to say that I think the Irish people are being a little bit tough on Conor, and give him a shot, give him a chance, let him come back around, and do not count Conor out of this Floyd fight. Telling you. Peace out.